I don't know if you guys noticed, but I changed the camera setup just to kind of give another venue. That's not the right word. Today, we're going to talk about, my last video had to do with, we're going to put some light on this, maybe. I don't know if it's, yeah, I don't have a studio light like some others have in here. Okay, I'm going to turn that off. It's too bright. Okay, here we go. Noel from Noel's Garden Tractors and Firewood, or maybe the other way around there, Firewood and Garden Tractors. He told me he had run into something interesting when he was doing some propane installations, I guess hookups, like furnace hookup to propane, and in his younger days, if you want. And he says he ran into a guy, poking around with a little knife here. He ran into an engineer, supposedly, around, well, he had to be around where he lives, and I think it's PEI, Prince Edward Island, and this engineer, well, he had, where it was a new house, he had wired the house with 220 plugs, and then at every plug he had a transformer. I guess it would be a remote transformer that would, if it was necessitated, would convert the 220 to 110. First of all, okay, there's I have to explain that everybody in the world, like every country, has their own interpretation of what it should be. And mostly it revolves around the initial installations that were decided by just private companies, and they started off with something like in the US and Canada we have 110, 220, and that's our normal service for households. 120, 240 if you want. And in the EU, it's 230, 240 to neutral. Okay? The little difference is here our neutral is white and ground is green here in America, while in the EU, European Union, their neutral is, hang on now, I gotta get this right, blue, and their ground is yellow and green, if I'm right. There's some guys in there are gonna correct me if I'm wrong. Anyways, whoa, what did I do there? Well, something fell in the back. Anyways, yeah, so and there's different configurations. They like 220 at a certain amperage. Here in America, 220 is one vertical, one horizontal, plus your ground pin. That's a 220 outlet, but there's different, like they'll go like this at a different amperage, like 15 amps is like that. One vertical, one horizontal. Like 20 amps will be like this. All different configurations, eh? Well, in the EU, what they have is, and it's a 230, 240 configuration. The big difference too is that they have 50 hertz. They're running on 50 hertz, while here in America we're running on 60 hertz. I'm gonna try to think to talk about some about this, because there's in different applications the amount of cycles is important. Okay, now if you're gonna convert, let's say like this guy, he said this guy had transformers. Well, he said the house was wired 220. So of the essence, he had 220 plugs, okay? One vertical, one horizontal. And every plug was like that in the house. Then he had a plug-in, had a transformer. Oh, okay, but if he had that, then if he had the European plugs, which is two little balls, and these are male, these two little prongs, round prongs, and then the female is the upper and the lower. They're female in your receptacle, not the wall receptacle, your receptacle that you're playing with. Okay, two males round and then two females round, upper and lower. And the UK, what they have is, hang on, they're all vertical stabs, vertical male stabs, one upper and then two, and they see everybody. The big problem with this is everybody's got a claim to fame, like their system is better than everybody else, but nobody's better than nobody. In the UK, they say, well, they have the newer plugs, okay? They were no better than others before, but now their newer plugs have a little door. The first stab that goes in is the ground. It opens a little door, and then there are two other stabs, because they're running on 230, 240 volts. It's a little bit more poignant than 110. So little kids, they poke around, hey, they're gonna get it. And whether it be biased to ground, yeah, see that like in the European Union, their 230, 240 volt is biased to ground at that voltage. Us, biased to ground is 110. It's biased from phase to phase is, I don't know, maybe that's a little bit too much for the normal layman in here. But anyways, here we get it from phase to phase. Like you got a red phase and you got a black phase. And that has to do with the cycles, and where you pick up. If you pick up at the higher part, or if you pick up in the middle, or you pick up at the bottom. But depending on that, the difference is where you pick up your phasing and your hookup is in the winding has to do with the voltage that you're running, and your bias is always from. But this is done in a transformer, right? Anyways, okay, they're running a transformer. He could have done it. The guy could have had plugs, 110 plugs, and then step up to 220 with a step-up transformer. But the problem with this would have been that, let's say if he had a I was going to say a soldering iron, the thing that boils the water there, boiling kettle, plug-in type. Well, if you hook that up, if that thing's drawn, let's say 14 amps at 240 volts, but if you're running on a 220, 110, and you're stepping that up to 240, well, you'd be stepping up your amperage too at the same time. Yeah. So what he did was he hooked up, he had this set up, but my yeah, he had the setup with 220 outlets, and then he was stepping down if he was hooking up anything that would be North American made. That was 110. It's the only way that it could have been done, and it would have been legal. But those plugs that he was using in the wall would have been the configuration that we have in North America, which is different than the configuration. What am I doing with this confederation? Configuration that they have in Europe, which is different. Hey, everybody has their own little thing. When I worked in Africa and I first started, I said, how come they got 200? I was measuring 230 some, I think 36 volts, and it was to neutral. And then I said, oh, but they had breakers, okay, on their main, like the main neutral had a breaker on it, which we don't here, because it's their thing. By having the need for a breaker, I guess, is the same thing as if we have the A and the B phase in your panel, which gives you 240, and we have a breaker for each, and they're together. There's a tie bar in between the two breakers, So this is one of the ways. But like as an electrician, I was brought in to fix. Well, the reason I was brought in, is that they had burnt a whole bunch of electronic stuff, And I had found the problem is they had a floating neutral, and for some reason I can't see why, but it had burnt a whole bunch of stuff. So maybe like it was going in series, the load was going in series from one item to the next, and the electronic stuff don't like that. Like pick up the load of the let's say the water boiling thing there. Electronic stuff don't like that, So I think but I had found that their main breaker was losing its contact in the panel, and I had attributed it to that. But I was thinking about that after the fact. I wasn't even in Africa anymore. I was back here, And I was thinking that what they're doing is they had a transformer pack. They had a 220, 230, 240 volt outlet. They had a transformer. They were transforming that down to 110. But no matter how you reduce the voltage, you're still reducing something that's running at 50 cycles per second. So you don't get, and I'm not sure that different electronic stuff like that too much. I know one thing, is that motors, if you had a motor, no matter if you had a 60 cycle motor and you hooked it up to 50 cycle, well, that motor will run anyways on 240, The motor will run anyways, but it would run hotter with the same load. The motor would run hotter. I haven't tried none of this. This is just from what I know. Contentions is what it is, So don't go out there and tell everybody you pretend that you know everything when you got the information from me, But anyways, for Noel's story, the guy wired up 220 plugs. I sure hope. Well, first of all, this guy must have got inspection. Well, that's 30 years ago, so I don't know in Prince Edward Island if they had inspections then. If not, he probably wired it with European plugs put 240 on them, and then use the step down transformer so when he needed I don't know. I don't know the whole story behind this engineer, but whatever he did, depending on if they had inspections or not. If they had inspections, then he had to abide by the North American Electrical Code, and we have standards. Like a 220 outlet has to have a certain configuration, and the European outlets don't apply. So if he didn't get inspection, then I guess he could do whatever he wanted. Put European outlets on 220, Canadian 220. It's very close to being the same, but it's the transformers, like the supply transformers that are different. And by them being different, see, us, we figure it's not as dangerous 110 as, like you get a lift on 110, I can get 110 like through my fingers, and even I've had one time I picked it up. It was on the load of a skill saws, and 2 ground, and I got a good jerk. This was a temporary outlet, it was in a high rise, and from floor to floor, the plugs were all fed with like the same circuit, and on the lower floors, like the power just goes from the upper part of the outlet, the lower part of the outlet to the upper part of the outlet, then to the next floor, So whatever was plugged in, I just took it apart to change the plug. When I plugged it back in, I don't know, I put my fingers at the wrong spot. Anyways, I got that was, you know what? That's about I got not 600 volt. I got 347. Maybe 3-4 times. Maybe we'll have a video of that one day in my life. And this 110, this time, the load from the skill saws, that was want to wake me up more, Okay, one time I was knocked out for about 10 minutes on the floor, but it's because I come from about 10 feet up in the air, and when I got it, it threw me right off the ladder. Hey, that story's for another day, Okay, this is your chance to subscribe to this valuable channel. Well, there's some good stuff coming up, shortly there. If that groundhog wasn't up the apple tree there, we'll be soon at the camp soon, and we'll be done, unless it's time for the camp stories. So that's it, folks. Comments are welcome, and as usual, we'll see you in the next one.